The title of the presentation really has its origins in a view that used to be expressed about the project 8 or 9 years ago, that we were reaching too far, that we were trying for something we couldn't possibly achieve, because the games were we wanted the games to be about nation building, to bring the country together, to sort of give the country a moment in time where every Canadian could share in something that we all felt proud about and celebrated. And many thought, this is far too big a reach, we'll embarrass ourselves, this is not going to work. And our view in Vancouver was that given that we will only have this opportunity once, we want to go as far as we can with the opportunity that we have, and not leave, not get to the end of the games and look back and have regrets about the stuff we didn't try to do. So in the early days, I think there was many people who just simply doubted that we had the capacity to pull it off. So it's a little bit about that and how we put that vision together and the values of the organization as we set out to try to build our project and give the country something to unite around.
You built it in a very pan-Canadian way.
Yes.
How are some of the ways that you solidified that sense of
Canadian? I think you have to recognize that Canada is not Luxembourg. It's 6 times the size of Europe. And we tend to be a country of regions. And so we recognize that it wouldn't be good enough to just talk about this vision of Canada's games, but to go out there and communicate in all parts of the country, to have partnerships with all the provinces and territories which we had, to take the torch relay and weave it through the fabric of the country. We went through well past 1,000 communities to celebrate with the Olympic flame, and we had our sponsors were from all over the country. We had volunteers came from all over the country. Essentially, Canada gathered in Vancouver to put on the Olympic Games. And so British Columbia extended the invitation and everybody took it up and off we went. So that is what was different about this Olympics than all previous editions of the Games in every country in the world. It's always been before about one city or one region, but never about the idea of nation building. I think when the Olympic flame landed in Victoria, and suddenly there it was, and everybody got up close to it, and 30,000 people came out that first morning in the pouring rain. We knew that Canada was ready to unite around this, and off it went. And the experience we had in the north, where a community of 2,000 would grow to 4,000 when the flame would arrive, we then knew that something was happening, and the ground was moving under our feet, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it landed in Vancouver, you couldn't find a citizen who wasn't involved. The Olympic Games were far from 2 weeks of sport. It was a coming together for the country. So every province and territory was there. They had teams there. Canada was there. BC was there. Municipalities were there. And they came with teams, and they came to tell their part of the story, to do their part of the work, and to contribute in the way that they had committed to. And so it allowed the entire country to gather under one roof, if you like, and show off in front of the world. And in the end, we had 2 out of every 3 people in the world who has access to a television watched what was going on in Canada. And I think it gave a nice glow to the country, and it showed us what we can do when we hold hands and stick together. Well, my father was a fairly senior public servant in the Irish prison system, and he was highly dedicated, believed every day that he was working for the country, and he instilled in us a service sort of ethic, culture. We were a values-based family. I mean, you can imagine when your father is a leader in the prison system, you're expected to, if you break it, you better fix it, and you don't take it if it's not yours, and so on. So we grew up with these values, and he imparted these values, and tonight I will talk about this and the impact he had on me, and how I tried to take that and implant that culture inside the organizing committee and build a culture around this kind of code of honor, because I thought it was the one thing that would hold us together when times got difficult, and they got very difficult, and we had to deal with the most extraordinary adversity never before seen at the Olympic Games, and we managed to get through it and still unite the country. It was all about the team. I mean, I was the first employee. We were 50,000 people at the start of the Games, and it was the 30,000 or so who were engaged in the operations of the Games, and then all of the people who worked with our partners, all who were engaged in the same exercise. So we all came together. We were all guided by that vision. We were all guided by those values, and it took every bit of what those 50,000 people had to give to deliver what we gave to the world in last February. And it's why the world has looked on and been in awe of what we achieved here. I mean, Canada today is viewed as the best tourism brand in the world, #1, never had it before. All, I think, put down to the effect the Olympics had on the world's view of our country. So it was a pretty significant thing we set out to do, and the result, I think, we're going to benefit from over time. The thing about it is this, I mean, I think first of all that hosting the Olympics in and of itself is not the thing. You have to have a clear vision about what you want to do. I mean, just to set out to put on the games is not enough. You have to have a higher calling or a higher purpose. I think the most important thing is that the day we make these decisions to put on these events, that's the day we need to unite. It needs to be immediate, and all of the effort needs to begin at the very beginning so that we can extract the most good out of the work as we go along. And I think one of the difficulties with putting on a project like this is that you can sometimes start too slow and it takes too much time to build momentum. So once that decision is made and it's everyone in, that's the time to start building and to try to achieve the greater goal right away so that you're not chasing at the end to catch up. I think it's important to understand that people won't come together for any old reason. You know, there has to be a reason for it, and there has to be, you can't invite people if you're not going to include them. I mean, the higher purpose here was to allow the provinces and territories to be on the stage, to be involved in the project, to be able to walk away from the games and communicate that they had helped to put it on. So this was why they were here, to extract the full benefit and give the most that they could to the games. It was a very beautiful thing to watch. It was actually quite a bit easier to achieve than some people think, because I think many of the provinces were rather stunned that we showed up and offered that invitation to participate. I mean, it says something when the Premier of the province of Newfoundland, it's closer from Newfoundland to London than it is from Newfoundland to Vancouver, to say yes to Vancouver and come out and engage and invest the way they did in the games. It meant a lot to the country, and I think it just requires a commitment to when you try to get everyone to come together, to make sure that everybody is included and treated the right way, and we try to do that. Well, from the very beginning, I believe that if we didn't have the country together, we would look back on these games and a lot of it would have become forgettable. This idea that we extracted everything from this moment. We tried to include everything we possibly could. There was very little, I think, that we missed out on. I think we had Aboriginal Canada were there, we had all of the provinces and territories, we had all of the police agencies. Everybody was in Vancouver. The country did this together and it looked very good on us, and I think it was a great lesson to Canada about what we are able to do. And I think there's a new confidence in the country. There's a smile on Canada's face. I think people saw the differences between us and other cultures, and I think there's just no amount of money that you could spend to buy that. Well, I'm doing a lot of traveling around the world, communicating and talking about what happened in Vancouver. It's extraordinary how many people want to hear about our story. I've written a book called Patriot Hearts, Inside the Games That Changed the Country, and I'm looking at a number of other things, but we're at Vancouver 2010, we're not quite out of business yet. We have still some work to do. We'll be finished at the end of the year. We'll finish with a balanced budget, and so we're very happy to have met our obligations to the country. We've kept our promises to Canadians, and feel very good heading off into the sunset.
And we're ready.
I think one of the things that we tried to do at Vancouver 2010 is to instill in everybody this sense of pride that they could do anything, that they could make this great contribution. And I think in the public service, I think it's possible for every single person working in the public service at any level, in any part of the country, to make a huge difference. When I came to Canada, I was a young, frightened kid. I came here, I landed in Edmonton, and my first interaction with a Canadian was with a customs agent at the Edmonton airport. And after a brief discussion, he looked at my passport, asked me what I was going to do, and he said, "Welcome to Canada, make us better." And here was a person who clearly was trying to make an impression on me and was sending a message that in this country things only work if everybody makes a contribution, if everybody gives a little. And he showed, I think, extraordinary class and dignity, and I think he changed my life entirely. I mean, I went away from that meeting with this burden that I've carried with my whole life of feeling like it was my obligation to contribute to what was going on around me. I think that's to me, that was a wonderful example of a public servant rising to the occasion, coming to work every day inspired and doing the most good that he could. And it's very impressive, and it's something that I will take with me my whole life. Well, initially, we had thought about the idea of taking the flame into the House of Commons, but when we designed the torch relay, the timing was awkward to get here. So on one particular day in December of 2009, I think it was the 11th or 13th, we decided to splinter off from the relay and bring the flame down to Ottawa. And I thought that if we could bring the flame into the House of Commons and walk it right into the middle of that room, which most of us, when we see this room on television, it's usually we see this ongoing argument, debate, discussion. It's often quite unfriendly. And I thought if we could bring that flame in there and unite that House briefly, it would send a message to the country that this matters, that this counts, and it has this kind of power. And the day we went in there and Barbara Ann Scott carried that flame in there, I remember standing in the back of the chamber and looking in the faces of those men and women, that they became children for 15 minutes, and they broke into this "Go Canada Go" chant, and it was very special, and the whole country saw it again and again and again. And to me, that was a transformational day for the Games. It was a day when the country started, oh, this is big, this is important. And from then on, the momentum built, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time we got to Vancouver, well over half the population had come to the highway. So it was a pretty special day, and you know, to be able to go in there and see that display of patriotism and unity brought about by this little flame was pretty special.